I've had my Ninja CREAMi for a few months now, and I've learned a few things, so I thought I would make another video to share just some thoughts and suggestions. It's not really a frequently asked questions, it's just kind of my experiences and what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. So first off, a lot of people have mentioned the icy edges when you make an ice cream and you scoop it out. It's really great, but along the edges, what do you do with the icy bits? First off, if you let them melt, they usually get to be edible. They get to be actually pretty good. They don't scoop well, but just to take the pint after it's melted for maybe, I don't know, half hour or so, I scoop it out with a spoon and it's actually pretty good. If you don't want to do that, obviously it's not enough to save, so in the freezer. So what I do is I save it in the fridge, and in the fridge it slowly melts down. The edges no longer are icy. It turns into a liquid again. You could leave it out on the counter too, either way. But if I put it in the fridge, then you just kind of forget about it. And then you can mix in other flavors. Either you can, let's say you have a little bit left of some strawberry ice cream. You can add more strawberry to it, or you can add mango to it, or add vanilla, or pretty much anything you want. And mixing flavors is kind of sometimes interesting, and you come up with new ice creams that you hadn't really thought of before. So that's a way that you don't have to waste the last little bit. Additionally, sometimes it's hard to get a nice flat top before you refreeze, so I just let it melt down, either outside the freezer or just in the refrigerator. And once it gets to be more of a liquid, it'll flat down into a nice top, and then you can put it back in the freezer. So that works for me. The other thing is alcohol in cooking. If you put alcohol directly into your ice cream, often it doesn't set up well. It gets to be soupy when you try to mix it, especially for sorbets, because there's no fat in the sorbet. So to fix that, there's two options. One, you can just cook your alcohol. Sometimes I make fruits and I cook them, and then I flambe it with a little bit of alcohol. I cook it off, not too long, maybe 10 minutes or so, and then I add it to my ice cream, and it works out just fine. The other option is to make a sauce at the end, maybe as a mix-in, or just to drizzle on top. That's my preference, to drizzle the sauce on top of the ice cream. That way it keeps my ice cream intact. I don't have to worry about people not liking a certain thing or liking a certain thing. And then I can save it too, because it's not mixed in. If it's drizzled over the top, that's much better for me. So alcohol works really well that way, making some sort of a sauce. Extra pints. So I bought some extra pints from a third-party vendor. Make sure when you buy your extra pints that they are compatible, that they have the bottom divots in them that fit onto your base. I have a deluxe, so make sure it works for the model that you have. There's a lot of really cheap ones, and I don't know the quality of those or if they'll actually fit on your machine. So I paid $25 for 4, which is not a huge great deal, but it's better than the price. I believe it's $29 for 2 when you buy it direct from Ninja CREAMi. And I found these are just fine. They work just the same as the Ninja CREAMi. I think the tops fit a little bit differently. Like the Ninja CREAMi tops don't perfectly fit on these, but it doesn't make a difference when you freeze them. As long as the top is setting on there and it's on a flat surface, it's totally fine. I suggest buying at least 4 extras, because this comes with 2, so then you've got 6 total, which is really nice to have on hand. I like to stock my freezer full of a wide variety of types of ice creams. I like to have full-fat ice cream, diet ice cream made with protein powder. I like to have yogurt, froyo. Those are really good mixed with different fruits. And I like to try different experiments, like maybe cottage cheese or different combinations. So it's nice, and sorbets too. So I like to have a lot of those in my freezer. So you need the extra pints for that. If your base, if when you spin it, it's totally normal for it to be icy, not icy, like snowy and fluffy on the first spin. That's totally normal. It's actually a good thing. When I use my spoon, I go around the edges and I just kind of fluff it up. Sometimes I add liquid, sometimes I don't. And then I put it in for my respin, and usually that does the trick. Occasionally it'll be bally on the second spin. If that's the case, before you spin it again, I would take a spoon and kind of mash it down. Sometimes you'll find that you're able to scoop it and it's actually a perfect consistency. It doesn't look great when you first look at from the top, but then when you mash it a little bit with a spoon, perfect. If you overmix, it becomes soupy, and the only way to fix that is to put it back in the freezer and wait 24 hours and then respin it. So I like to check it first. Couple things on the respin. That's what I do the first time I spin it on the regular whatever you're making. The second time, if I need a respin, I hit the respin button. If I just want a little bit more and mixing it doesn't do the trick, you can click on mix in even if you're not mixing something in, and that just does a light stir. It's not as long or as intense as the respin button. So there's lots of options for mixing. I guess a big suggestion would be to not be afraid to try different things. So start with the basic chocolate and the basic vanilla, make those, get comfortable with those. And then you can experiment with different fruits, different flavorings. You know, of course, vanilla is a basic flavoring, but then you can try different extracts, different herbs, different spices, whatever you have on hand, whatever's at the farmer's market, things like that. And don't be afraid of trying different bases as far as instead of using milk and cream, you can use different types of milks. Obviously, you can use vegan, you can do like almond milk, soy milk, things like that. You can use protein powders. You can also do things that are still high fat but different, like different kinds of cheeses. I use goat cheese, ricotta, cottage cheese, and of course yogurt. You can use regular store-bought yogurt, your favorite brand, or you can, I prefer to use Greek yogurt because then I can mix in whatever fruits I want. So don't be afraid to experiment. Once you get the fat content correct and how you need to, if you're using something lower fat, that you need to use an emulsifier like Jello or guar gum, things like that. Once you learn that, you can use all kinds of different flavorings, and the sky's the limit as far as what kinds of ice creams you can make. And I guess my last suggestion is talking about fruits. When you're mixing those in, you can do it however you want. You can just throw in a bunch of soft fruit like strawberries or raspberries, things like that. Or you can mix fruits. You can just put them in directly and freeze it, and the Ninja will do just fine, and there really won't be big chunks. You'll see little pieces, but it mixes it up pretty well. You can also cook your fruit. This is especially good if you have a harder fruit like an apple. Obviously, you wouldn't want to put too big of chunks of apples in there because it would be difficult for it to get through. So for harder fruits or even softer fruits, you can cook them. You can put them in directly after you cook them, or you can strain them. You can also use like a bullet or any kind of blender, and you can blend your fruits before you put them in. So there's all kinds of options. And one last tip is, if you're using heavy cream, be careful to not overmix it, as in don't blend it for a long time in your bullet before you put it in your ice cream. You'll have kind of a fatty feel to your ice cream like butter, and obviously that's not good. So those are just a few tips that I've come up with in a few months. I'm sure there's going to be more, and I'm sure there's tons of other suggestions out there. I'd love to hear any suggestions you have. Thanks.